What's up guys, Lou here and welcome to my casual, opinionated review of the 13-inch MacBook Air that was just released and just announced at WWDC. This of course is the Ivy Bridge model and it's got some new features and functions, not too many, but what I really want to do in this video is talk about the difference between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, the one that was also just announced with the retina display, because I've been getting a ton of questions from people about whether or not they should pick up the latest generation MacBook Air or if they should spend some extra cash and get themselves the MacBook Pro. So I'm going to get straight to the point here. This computer is $1,200. That's the base model 13-inch. You're going to get a 1.8 gigahertz processor, dual core. Of course, when you step up to the MacBook Pro, you can get a quad core. You're going to get the retina display, so on and so forth. But more importantly than any of that stuff, any of those specs or that number-driven stuff that we could talk about, I think we need to talk about money. This right here is $1,200. The MacBook Pro is, if you're looking at the one with the retina display, which is obviously the most compelling model, starts at $2,200. Is that computer twice the computer that this one is? Is the cost justified? Well, I'd say for a select number of people it is. I mean, if you really know how to stress out a quad-core CPU and you really want 16 gigs of RAM and you need larger SSD storage, so on and so forth, you know who you are and I'm talking to you, and you probably don't even need to watch a video like this because you know how to use those improved specifications. But for somebody who's on the fence and sort of thinking, hey, could I get by with a MacBook Air and half the investment? I think you can. And in some ways, I think the MacBook Air is actually a better purchase for casual users, students, people who travel a lot, etc., than the MacBook Pro would be. Now, I'm going to tell you why. It's got the 13-inch form factor and it's only 3 pounds. Now, that's obviously the same as the previous gen MacBook Air, so this would apply if you're going to pick up an older model as well. Now, this particular size and form factor is significantly better for airplanes, backpacks. It's a lot more friendly in that sense. You're not giving up a ton in terms of screen real estate. Of course, the new Retina display packs this incredible figure, 2880 by 1800, but currently there are a few things that can take advantage of resolution like that while remaining legible. People have been reporting that websites don't look that great, and you actually spend a lot of time down-resing the screen, meaning that you're not actually going to get the represented workspace that's advertised. You're not literally going to get 2880 by 1800 in terms of workspace. Of course, pictures, image-based things, and of course, as applications begin to become optimized for that Retina display, things are going to get better and look more beautiful. But again, that's sort of the niche end of things when you start to worry about that. I say the other things that I mentioned earlier are far more practical considerations when you're talking about size, weight, and cost. Now, from a performance standpoint, 9 out of 10 or maybe even 99 out of 100 users are going to be completely happy with the performance that this particular base model 13-inch MacBook Pro can deliver at $1,200. The vast majority of computer users are doing very basic tasks. The number of people who are doing intensive video editing on 1080p files is growing, but it still doesn't represent the substantial amount of computer users in general. Now, this particular MacBook Air has been improved over the previous generation, not a ton. You now have Ivy Bridge, so you've got better processing power. You've got USB 3.0 on here now. You've also got an improved webcam, which I think the previous generation should have had in it. You've got a 720p webcam that's the same as the other MacBook models, which is a good thing. And maybe one of the most important factors is now the latest model can be spec'd out to 8 gigabytes of RAM, whereas the previous generation maxed out at 4 gigabytes. Now, the reason that's important is because if you are the kind of user that does want to do some video editing from time to time, you can really bridge that gap between this model and the Pro model by throwing in a little bit of extra RAM. One downside of trying to add extra RAM is the fact that you can't do it at a later date. This thing is not user serviceable in any manner, but then again, neither is the Retina model MacBook Pro. People have been reporting that everything is soldered on the board in that particular model as well, so you're not going to be able to upgrade RAM on that one either. Whatever you buy from the factory is going to be with what you're stuck with. So if you do pick up one of these MacBook Airs and you think you might get into multimedia eventually, then you might want to consider speccing it out with 8 gigs of RAM from the factory. I'd probably leave the processor where it is. Again, you're going to start spending more money than you should on a cost to performance ratio if you start upgrading that. I'd go with the base stock model with the smaller SSD, of course, unless you know that you're going to need more storage. But with the stock model SSD and then spec it out with 8 gigs of RAM. That's my recommendation. This is a great machine. I would recommend this to almost anybody. Like I said, the only people that I would suggest step up to the latest gen MacBook Pro, which of course I don't have yet, but I can't wait to get my hands on, are those that know exactly how they're going to utilize that extra power. Because otherwise, this thing is going to be sufficient for 9 out of 10 computer users, as I said before, and in some cases, it's going to be a major upgrade over what you already have. That's something that's amazing to say when you're talking about a computer that has a 13-inch form factor. It's 3 pounds. This is still a marvelous design, and it's still amazing to me that they were able to pack what they packed into a form factor like this. I mean, the thing is solid too. It doesn't feel flimsy in any way. You get lots of battery life. As you guys can tell, I'm a big fan of this particular machine, and other than that, I don't think I've got anything else to mention. I hope you enjoyed this casual style review. Hopefully once I get my hands, or I'm definitely going to get my hands on the latest generation MacBook Pro with the retina display, and at that point I might be able to put them side by side and do some actual speed comparisons and things like that. But as I mentioned before, most of that information is only really represented in those tests. In real world scenarios, for most people, the performance difference between a MacBook Air like this and the top-of-the-line Retina display MacBook Pro is not going to be significant enough to warrant double the cost. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. I hope you appreciated this particular review. If you did, make sure to hit that like and favorite button down below. Leave your own comments. I do appreciate it. And other than that, I'll catch you guys on the next video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that too. And yeah, catch you guys later. Bye.